Thanks so much for tuning into this workshop. I hope you're all having a wonderful day. So today we are going to be reviewing We Who Will Die by Stacia Stark. I was very underwhelmed by this book, and I can't really pinpoint why, to be honest with you. And you know what? I had the same conversation with my bestie Gina. She couldn't figure out why she didn't love. We both ended up doing the same thing. We both each had the arc, right? She had it first, and then she gifted it to me. And I think about it, I got about a quarter of the way in, and I'm like, I cannot focus on this book, right? And so I started audiobooking it, and she did the exact same thing. Around the same point as me as well. So I'm just like, oh, she's like, oh, good, it's not me. I'm like, no, it's definitely not you. And this book feels more like a her book than a me book. And she said this, same thing. She's like, it feels more like a me book versus a her book. So it's really, really, really funny. There was a disconnect. There was very much this disconnect. At first, I felt like the tone of the book reminded me a little too much of Blood of Hercules. And I hated that book. Which is funny because she absolutely loves that book. It gave me the same vibes, I do agree that this one has really, it has well-written characters. I do think the characters are better written. I think the story overall is better written. It's not a bad book. I did the audiobook. I finished it. I have no regrets about finishing it. I do want to read the sequel if there's going to be a sequel, because I am interested to see where we're going to go from here. I just felt like it was I feel like the market is starting to get oversaturated with the, not that there's anything wrong with it, female heroines having to fight for their motherfucking lives, and then they have a love interest, right? It's like I hate love, I hate you, I love you, I hate you, I love you kind of thing. And I think the market right now is really oversaturated by that type of story. Now, phenomenal books that kind of match those same things, When the Moon Hatched, because it kind of has like that same kind of tropes, and I fucking love that book. Fucking love it. 5 stars. I cannot wait for the sequel. But I think that's part of the problem. It felt too much like everything else out there, So I was bored. I think that's really what it comes down to. I feel like the market's so oversaturated with this type of story right now. So I felt bored. I'm like, oh, well, I've kind of read something similar to this already this year. So I think that's probably my biggest issue with this book. It's just that I was bored. It didn't feel fresh. It didn't feel unique. I don't think that it was poorly written at all. I quite liked it. I was just bored reading it, that I had to do the audiobook. And it was an interesting book. Our main character, pretty much everyone's born with like a sigil on their forehead. It's either bronze, silver, gold kind of sigil, right? And it grows as your magic awakens. So I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. That was unique. That was memorable. And you have vampires, right? And I'm like, oh yeah, this is cool. So we're blending in like paranormal fantasy with like high fantasy. Like, that's really cool. But again, Carissa Broadbent did something similar, and hers, again, I think was better written, right? Again, nothing against Stacia Stark. I think she's, a pretty good writer. I just think it felt too similar to other books I've read that I think are better. And I think that's where my disconnect was coming, for me at least. Just sitting down, thinking about it, talking about it, it felt dry isn't exactly the right word I want to use. I think the world building was interesting with the sigil marked and the void marked, as in you're born without it. You know, her brother has breathing problems and she's trying to like just save her brothers, you know, both of them. You know, she's their caretaker. I think the premise is interesting. They hire her to infiltrate the guard. In order to do that, she has to pass a pretty much like a Hunger Games thing, like, oh, a kill or be killed kind of scenario, but not against each other most of the time, in order to earn a spot in like the Emperor's inner circle of guards, because the goal is to kill him. They want to assassinate him. And, you know, I'm all here for it. He wasn't really a good guy. Lo and behold, his son is the boy she fell in love with when she was younger, who kind of abandoned her, except she doesn't know why. You know, their dynamic was really interesting. I think it needed a little bit more depth, their relationship, the character dynamics. Again, they were well done, but I wasn't like hooked into their romance. I wasn't like, oh yeah. I wasn't absolutely hooked into the romance. And in the second book, I have a feeling she's gonna hook up with his dick of a brother. I feel like that's gonna happen because he's a dick. He's a huge dick, actually. I feel like all the animosity and tension between them, you know, she's gonna find out that he's absolutely not a complete monster like she thinks, and she's gonna end up choosing him. I actually wouldn't be mad about that, as predictable as that is. I think he's a more fascinating character than her current love interest. Um, and I've seen this trope a lot in fantasy quite frequently, where the first love is not always the end game. It's the new love that they start off hating, but then they grow to love because they see that there's lots of depth. I think he's a more interesting character. And I think if the second book, now that all the world building's done, and this is why I'm interested in book 2, I think if she flushes out some of those character dynamics and the magic she has, because she's like she siphons magic. You know, when she kills someone, she takes their power, which I think is really interesting. I thought that was really cool, you know. I think that there's lots of potential for this series, you know. I just think right now, the way it was structured and the way it was written felt too matchy-matchy to other books that already exist that I do think have better character dynamics, you know, better well-written dynamics, I should say. Not to say this one wasn't well-written. It was. I just think that there are some that are better, you know. Literature is subjective. Literature is art. Everyone has their own opinions. I think now that she's kind of just established everything in this book, she can take what she's established and really make everything flourish in the second book. Because I am interested to see what's going to happen with the brother. I totally think they're going to hook up. I totally think they're going to hook up. And he's just not a great guy in this book. But I wouldn't be mad about it. As long as it's written well and as long as we do get to see more depth and character growth. Because I think that's another thing that was lacking in this one. There wasn't a whole lot of character growth. There was some, just not as much as I would have liked, or as much, as much as I would have hoped, you know? So ultimately, I liked it. It's a solid 3 stars, you know, soft 3.5. It wasn't terrible by any means. I just think that there were some things that could have been done better. And I think that right now it just felt too similar to other books that I've read right now. You know, I had too many of the same similar vibes, both to books I loved until one I hated, which I needed the audiobook to like wash my brain of the feel of Blood of Hercules. I was like, oh yes, this is exactly what I needed. I did the audiobook, I'm like, oh yes. Oh, cleanse, because the audiobook gave it a completely different feel from when I was physically reading it, and I did appreciate that. So yeah, I mean, you know, not a bad book. Definitely a solid 3 stars. I definitely do think it's worth reading, and I am excited to see what book 2 is going to bring. And I think it's gonna be really, really interesting. So, on that note, Thank you all for tuning in. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share with all your book loving friends. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and as always, happy reading.